Arizona Attorney General Kris Mayes recently filed a lawsuit accusing 9 prominent landlords and a software company of engaging in an illegal price-fixing operation that resulted in massive rent hikes around the valley and the state. To learn more about all this, we welcome Mark Stapp, director of ASU Center for Real Estate Theory and Practice. Mark, always a pleasure. Good to have you here. What do you make of all this? This is interesting stuff, and it's not necessarily confined to Arizona, is it?
No, it's not. In fact, President Biden, in his State of the Union, mentioned this very thing, right? So it's obviously a concern when we have the affordability issues that we do, and rents had gone up so quickly. We've talked about this a lot, and I think it's something that should be investigated. I think, however, it's going to be difficult to parse out what normal market effect and what the effect of RealPage's algorithm is on causing rent increases.
Okay, RealPage is the software company.
Correct.
We got these 9 prominent landlords, these real estate companies. How does the Attorney General allege that they schemed to fix prices?
Well, this is a fact case, and I don't have all of the facts, and I'm quite sure that she's done her homework before she decided to file this suit. So with that said, I'm not sure how she has the confidence, other than if you begin looking at how RealPage works and the allegations about some collusion between the various apartment managers and RealPage, you can come to a conclusion that they were collaborating in order to set prices, and those prices were set higher than they may normally have been if everybody was working independently.
Okay, so and basically RealPage, the software company, gave these landlords data. They all shared them. They all worked, this is the allegation, they all worked together and up go the prices.
Yeah, I think that's generally what it is.
Okay, if that's generally what it is, what happened to market forces? Why can't the Ted Simons real estate company come in and start charging lower rates and get all the business?
They can, right? So there's 3, if you look at apartment complexes of 50 units and above, which is the larger complexes. So the companies that are involved in this are really managing what we call institutional size complexes. There's about 370,000 existing apartment units that are in that category of 50 unit complexes and above. You add in smaller complexes and you're over 400,000 apartment units in the metro area, right? So that's a lot. A lot of people have access to data. You have CoStar, you've got other data companies that provide information to people who subscribe to it so that you know what others are charging for rent, what their occupancies are, what they're charging for rent, et cetera. So it's not limited to RealPage, who has the only data on the market. And then you've got apartment renters that have like Rent Cafe and other sources to get information. So
if my company wants the data from RealPage that they are giving it to these 9 prominent landlords, these 9 prominent companies, and they refuse to give it to me, but they give it to them, and they all gather together and up go the prices, is that price fixing?
Yeah, I don't know exactly how RealPage is doing this, right? And I don't know that they're refusing to give it to you, but you have to pay to get it, right?
Right.
RealPage is a company, they're in business to make money. They have an algorithm which is taking a lot of different data, putting it into this algorithm to determine how to optimize prices. And that might include things like, don't put these units on the market. If you hold these, this is what's likely going to happen with prices, and then you release them and you get higher rents for them. It's that kind of allegation.
Okay, so how much does that kind of a thing impact Arizona's affordable housing crisis?
It has an effect. I don't know whether it's going to be easy to determine the effect that RealPage had on overall market rents, because we know that there was a shortage of units and the supply-demand imbalance was significant. And it was across the board and it was across the country, right? It wasn't just relating to RealPage. And you're going to have to be able to parse out the effect that RealPage had. Was it a substantial effect, or was it a marginal effect, or was it really no effect at all that you could detect.
30% increase in rents, though, since 2021, and yet recently it looks like rents are kind of easing a bit. But 30% increase, could this have played a part?
It's possible it could play a part. Was it responsible for 30% increases? I doubt it. So why are rents coming down? Right? Well, this was well understood that we had a significant increase in the number of new apartments being built in a time period between 2018 and very recently. You still see some of them coming on the market. You start these projects, it takes them 2+ years to be able to come into the market. So you're seeing things today that started by the time they actually got out of the ground. It may have been 3-4 years ago those decisions were made. So we had a big push, a lot of apartments into the marketplace. And what we're seeing now is the effect of those, where the occupancies are decreasing slightly because you have more inventory. You have the effect of rents being softened because you have higher vacancy within these complexes. You're going to have to figure out what part of the allegation is really the result of RealPage.
And real quickly, because we're running out of time here, but that, I would imagine the more the units, the harder it is to price fix.
It becomes very difficult unless you have all of them in the same grouping of decision makers. And because there's so many of them, you don't. And you have a competitive marketplace, and people want to rent their apartments, so they have the ability to say, I'll keep my prices lower because I want you to rent my apartment.
Yeah.
So I think it's going to be, it'll be an interesting process to determine the real effect that RealPage had on overall market prices.
Good information. Mark Stapp, ASC Center for Real Estate Theory and Practice. Always a pleasure. Good to have you here.
Great to be here. Thank you.